Entrepreneur, author, and financial consultant Mark Bernstein helps high-performing entrepreneurial business owners create a vision for the future and follow through on their goals and intentions. Ange Honorato is a business growth strategist who blends psychology and business together to create conscious leaders and business owners who impact the world. Founders Forum is a radio show podcast sharing the real stories behind entrepreneurship as founders discover more about themselves while providing valuable lessons and some fun and entertainment for you. Now, here's Mark and Ange.
Good morning, America. How are you? I wish I could tell you my throat was a little better today. It's big allergy season. Just got off of a plane.
That's on them.
And so the voice is a little froggy, so I have a feeling Ange will be helping me out today. How are you doing this morning, Ange?
I am doing well, I guess better than you, because it's always a good day when my voice is working, right? Despite popular opinion sometimes. But yeah, doing good. It's a sunny day, finally again. So
it's a sunny day. And in Philadelphia, we were talking about the road situation, which has been national news, the closing of I-95 and the reopening. I know you were thinking about that. Well, you want to have
I was driving in this morning. Well, the last, couple weeks, right? Kind of preparing different routes and stuff. And it is nothing short, I think, of an absolute miracle that, when you saw what happened, you're thinking 6, 12 months, just terrible, terrible time. But 12 days, they got that thing up. If that is not a unique case of teamwork, cross-collaboration, reaching across the aisle,
and business and government working in tandem.
Absolutely. And you don't normally see that in Philadelphia, of all places,
right.
too. So
Good point.
amazing props to everybody. And we can all get to where we need to be in a timely fashion.
Very cool. And a lot of our show is getting where you're going. How are you getting where you're going in life, on the road,
in business,
everything. So it's a kind of a really good theme. So we have with us today a guest, Maggie Polisano, who's co-founder of CamaPlan. And if you're listening to us in podcast or on the radio, you would have heard her brother and co-founder, Carl Fisher, one of our first shows. So a little on Maggie. She's third-generation real estate investor, a certified trust specialist, and certified IRA services professional. We'll talk about that because that's very important to what they do at CamaPlan, who also is our sponsor for the show today, by the way. I'm a financial planner. We have a great relationship with CamaPlan. I'm a client of CamaPlan, and they do a great job in the alternative investment world with IRAs. Maggie's also a graduate of Villanova. It's near and dear to my heart. Maggie, we didn't talk about this, but we also had football coach Andy Talley on a few weeks ago, right, who is coach emeritus there, and he's got the Andy Talley Bone Marrow Foundation, of which I've been a supporter for probably 10 years now, and just a genuinely great guy. So that's something you can be proud of as a Villanova graduate. And Maggie's extensive background is investing in development of residential properties in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida. And Maggie brings a wealth of knowledge and a track record for successful highly successful real estate investments. So good morning, Maggie. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you, Mark, and thank you for having me on the show.
Our pleasure. We're glad to have you here. So we heard a little bit from Carl, and you guys have an interesting family because, among other things, I believe there are 12 children in your family. Is that?
That's correct.
And I believe Carl's the oldest, and I believe you're one of the younger ones. And so tell us about that. How did you two become partners? And how did that come about?
Yeah. So, people ask that all the time. And a lot of people don't realize that we're brother and sister. Sometimes people will ask, are you husband and wife? And I get more offended by that than Carl does.
I can understand that. I know.
Yeah. Everything in life, I think, is timing. And where we were, Carl's boys were in college. He was up in the Philadelphia area. His boys were at Villanova. I lived in the Ambler area. I was consulting at the time. We've always been, our family has invested in real estate. Carl brought to our family the idea of, the IRAs, investing in real estate, and the idea of the business. I guess it was just one of the nights that he was over our house having dinner, talking about the business. And, I having the IT background, I said, that's easy. I'll do that, it was a little bit harder than that that I thought. But yeah, so that was the start of it, and it's taken on. But I've enjoyed it quite a bit. And Carl and I are 15 years apart, and I think that lends itself to not having the sibling rivalry that you would have with somebody that's closer in age. But we complement each other well. And Carl is the oldest in our family, and just a really good guy, and very easy to work with.
I'd have to agree with you. He's a very good guy. I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last few years, and Carl is a special guy. Let's talk about your focus. I know IT and operations, I think. Like, what does Carl do and what do you do? How do you divide? What's your division of responsibilities look like?
It was, we're both have technical backgrounds, and I think that Carl's more in the sales end of things, and it kind of created itself very early on in the business, where he'll talk about me pushing him on stage after I put a presentation together. It wasn't the best presentation. I still have the little video of that, and I threaten him to take it out every once in a while. But and having the IT background, finding the systems that, pertain to our business, and then building different systems because, it made better sense and it streamlined our processes a lot better. That's how it evolved. My kids were young at the time. I had I think a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So my time out on the road was not going to happen. So that's how it evolved. And I think Carl's such a great salesman because he's not a true salesman. He's more of a technical guy.
Right.
So, and you need that in this type of a
Carl
business.
is a rocket scientist by background.
That's correct.
So, yeah.
So yeah, that's how we evolved. And that's kind of where we are today in the business. Still, we found, as the business grows, systems need to grow, sales need to grow. And so you start to evolve in laying out those two parts of the business.
How many years is CamaPlan in business now?
I believe it's over 20. I should know that as a fact, but it's definitely over 20.
So from my perspective in the business, it's one of the more successful third-party administrators for alternative investments in the country, I believe. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
I do believe it. I do believe we do a lot of things better than most in this business. It's because we care and because we're actual investors. We use the tools. Yeah. So it's practicing what we're preaching. And, we are technical people. We like to be precise. So our clients, I know, are in good hands.
Right. And that's a good business to have technical, precise people. I know as a financial planner and a customer of yours, I know that's very important. We look for that in our vendors. So that's really good. I'm going to turn it over to Ange because she loves to talk with her background about company culture. So why don't you take that, Ange?
Yeah. So I do love to find out company culture, and I think as you were just speaking, Maggie, another thing kind of came to mind too is a kind of a two-part question, which is over the 20 years that you guys have been in business. First part is, how have you seen the sort of psyche or the type of client that might be coming to you? In other words, has that changed at all in terms of the type of client that's interested in alternative investments, maybe versus, say, traditional, you kind of get a 401k or you get stock or you get different mutual funds and things. Mm-hmm. That's what people kind of grow up thinking. Have you seen that change in terms of, generationally? Are there younger folks kind of getting into this? Is it, and then how, if any impact, has that changed the way that the culture of the company has changed in gearing to support and offer those things? So kind of a two-part question, but it's kind of interesting the way that it kind of popped into my head. No,
that's a good question. A lot more people know of it now, right? From the start of the business, we had a lot of, I don't want to say naysayers, but a lot of people we had to get over, the hill to have them believe that this is possible, that it's not a taxable event, that you're not giving out a free IRA. It's not. It was an education. So the knowledge is there now, and now it's more of a who does it better and who educates better. And now it's, educating the customer as much. So we still have that retail education, but it's the asset provider, people looking to raise capital, how they can raise capital a lot easier from their clients that they've had a successful route with. Now they say to their clients, hey, did you realize that you could also do this with your retirement plan? So those are new avenues that are taking place now that are a lot easier for us to open accounts, where before we were more on the retail end of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine, especially since, in the corporate space, I think the way that companies are offering, longer term or, retirement time have been changing, right? A lot of smaller companies, they can't even afford to provide, 401ks and things of that nature. So there is I would imagine there's a bigger onus on people to try to, find other ways for themselves to ensure their financial stability and things moving forward. So it sounds wonderful that you also have been in a little bit of you're almost like your educational entrepreneurs as much as your financial and technical companies as well, right? Because you're kind of educating the market into that as well. So,
and by the way, if I could just comment on that, because I know Carl had the SIA, which I became a member of pre-pandemic, and I don't think it's kind of come back yet, but he had a group of people with alternative investment, people that had alternative investments that got together and shared ideas. They do podcasts. I've been on their podcast. So I know education is a big focus for you guys at CamaPlan. Are there other things that I'm missing about that, Maggie? I think you do some other things.
No, I think education is very big. It's education and what's possible out there as far as an investment. And Ange had spoken about alternative investments. They are the market now, right, with the economy. And another change that has been brought on, we've gotten older, so but there's a lot younger groups of people that are coming in now and learning about self-direction. And sometimes they're learning about it through the alternative markets, right? These alternative markets are more popular now. So that too, is a variable in bringing, but we're educating them on what's available and more importantly, how to do it correctly, right? With the rules of the IRS.
Well, I can also tell you our company, March, is our company, and I have partners, and we made a strategic decision about a year ago to change everything. We rebranded, and all of it was built around expanding our financial planning services and meeting the demand from our clients for alternative investments, which we weren't in much of a position to do in the past. So there's no question that that's the way the world is turning at the moment.
Yeah, I know we're going to go to a commercial break here in just a minute, but one question, Maggie, that has always intrigued me as of late is I've personally investigated other alternative investments and particularly real estate and things of that nature. That I would love to get your opinion on the idea of kind of the accredited versus non-accredited investor and sort of what things people are able to invest in if they're not yet considered accredited. It seems to me that it's still kind of prevents a lot of people from getting into certain aspects of markets if they're not accredited. Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of curious if you think that's something that will ever kind of change at all and allow, lower half to get into things.
Yeah. No, and I don't think they should be limited. I think if you're not an accredited investor, you have to find the forums and the groups to do so. And I think that I can speak a little bit about that on some of the women's investment groups that we're getting into. You don't want to, the idea is to build financial freedom, but so a lot of these women are already in professional, wearing professional hats, whether they're CPAs, doctors, but I want to talk about the younger generation. You have to start somewhere, right? So you're not going to be an accredited investor right away, but you have to pick the right asset class to invest in. So maybe you're not going to that alternative, platform online to invest where they're asking for the accredited investors. It's getting into the network of people that can allow you to invest in that. And there's plenty of them out there.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Yes. And I'm sure our listeners will be very, very interested. I know I am to learn more about that.
Well, I'll mention this too for people starting out. You can now invest in ETFs, which are alternative investments. I mean, there are other ways to do it until you get to the level of being an accredited investor. So there are other things you can do as well. So with that, I think this is a great time to hear from our sponsor, CamaPlan.
Establishing a self-directed Roth IRA or other self-directed retirement plan offers access to investment options usually only available to well-connected or wealthy individuals. Anyone can build wealth and achieve tax-free income for life and financial freedom without the inordinate risk of speculative investing, securities trading, exotic financial instruments, or hoping for the best from the stock market. Since their start in 2003, CamaPlan has come to be synonymous with expertise, flexibility, responsiveness, and diversity in investment choices. They provide innovative investment opportunities for investors seeking direct control and more choices in how they deploy their investment capital. CamaPlan doesn't just make it possible to invest in alternative assets, they also teach investors how to put their money to work. Take the road to financial freedom today. Go to CamaPlan.com/IRA.
Okay, we're back on Founders Forum with our guest today, Maggie Polisano, co-founder of CamaPlan. Maggie, wanted to ask you, we've talked a little bit about where you are today and where the market for what you do is today. Let's look at the future. We'd love to think about, forward motion on the show and what happens in the future. If we were sitting here 3 years from today and looking back over the last 3 years, what would have to happen in your life, business life and perhaps personally, if you want to touch on that as well, for you to look back and say that was a successful 3-year period in your career and your life?
Good question. I think we're trying to expand to the West Coast, so I'd like to have had that happen upon my 3-year anniversary of today. Also, my goal is to have minimal active involvement in the business, daily involvement into CamaPlan, so that I can focus more on women-run investment groups and forums. Yes. A Woman Invest Her is a group we started during COVID that had to kind of take a back seat as we got back into the office and changing of employees. I'd like to get that back up running successfully within that 3-year. Women Investors, a community of empowered women supporting each other, through businesses and investing in life. I
assume that covers a little bit of education as well, as we were talking before, right? Correct?
It does. Yeah. It does. Nice. Yeah. Nice. And it's again working along, women looking to build financial freedom.
And Maggie, you're about the West Coast expansion. I'm sure you have clients on the West Coast today because
we do.
You do it nationally.
We do. We want to have more. You want to have a physical
more feet on
the ground out there.
Physical presence out there.
Yes.
Gotcha. Great. Anything else for that 3-year vision?
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up. That's a lot right there.
I'll keep you busy for quite a while. Yes, and I'm familiar with the Invest Her, and I've followed some of it online, previous. So I think it's amazing that you're doing that, and that's a passion project for you as well, and a focus moving forward because, I think it's more needed than ever. The support, the ability, and we don't know what's happening in the future. So I think men and women need to learn how to be financially stable at all stages of life. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. No, I just think I find people are more productive, more successful if they're comfortable in their environment. We've noticed, and Carl, depending upon the presentation, the forums that you go to, some people are more comfortable speaking to another woman. Not all, but some are. And I think if they're more comfortable, they'll learn easier, faster, and be more efficient.
I think that's great. And I know there's this example in our business, there's women in financial services, and there aren't enough, honestly, financial advisors who are women. Just happen to meet somebody on the plane.
To me, it's hard because it's easy for me to work with guys, men. I have 9 brothers, so it's hard. But if I said, okay, let me find my professional women, like who do I have for a CPA? Well, it happens to be a male. I said, okay, well, why is this? It's an adjustment. You have to stop and put yourself, and say, well, what is it that I need in this? Like as a woman, are you okay with a woman pilot? Are you, so you really have to ask yourself, you have to check check yourself. So that's I have to really focus on grabbing the network of women and we'll help each other.
I think it's a really important point too, Maggie, that you brought up, because I think just stereotypically, if nothing else, women are typically more uncomfortable even talking about money, right? I think it's either, I've spent almost 30 years in executive search, and I can tell you that doing a salary negotiation for a female executive versus a male executive is a completely different experience, even today. And it's, I think there's just some systemic or societal or generational ancestral stuff, whatever it is. I think having, like you said, a space and a camaraderie to talk about that and
you're hitting it, because you got to break the barrier. There is a barrier, I believe, and we've got to break it, right? And how we do that, we don't know exactly, but I think if enough of us get together, we'll figure it out.
The glass ceiling, right? The glass ceiling.
Yeah. I guess so.
It's to shatter.
So, Maggie, I want to ask you, switch gears a little bit and talk to you about, you're running a very successful company, and, what successes have you had in your life? What events have happened that helps you bring success to the company and in your career? Do you have anything in particular that strikes you that way?
I just think my systems background, my upbringing, my parents are, I think I have a lot that I was born with or born into. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about values and integrity, from my family. And from myself, what I've prided myself
and it sounds
over.
like education was inbred in your family as well. It sounds like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Education, the value of education, the importance of of family values. I think that and breaking systems down, like complex systems, breaking them down into smaller tasks and executing them. So it's being able to take a problem, say, what is the problem? Let's break it down. Let's solve, it's like take a bite out of, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And that's kind of the approach that I've taken with the business. There's been things I haven't understood, say, okay, well, what is this? Let me break it down. Is this correct? Is this correct? And then, failed within it. And that's the same thing as with investing. I liken it to investing. There's stuff that has gone well, very well, and some of it's been luck. Other parts of it has been structured and expected. But you gain some insight from your failures also, right?
Do you have? I was going to ask you that. Do you have an example of a failure or a?
I do, and it comes to. I was dealing with a building project down in South Florida, and I was dealing with the county on an environmental issue, and I argued the remediation cost of taking the plants out. Time is money. This is what what I learned from it. And sometimes, I don't know if I learned don't argue with the county because I added a lot of time onto my the building project as a result of doing that and paying a lot more money. So I took it as a failure. The building project turned out to be a success, but it took a lot of time and it took a lot of money.
Well, that's a great. I work with a lot of real estate developers, so I'm sure that's a great lesson because it would be difficult to be a continuous investor and continue in that way without finding a more efficient way to push it.
Can't fight City Hall, literally. And
exactly.
Right?
You're exactly right. And that's what I learned. You can't fight City Hall. Shame on me with attorney's costs, the time. And, as right as I still think I was, there's sometimes you just have to hang it up and know who you're dealing with and move on and really evaluate. Is this worth your time? It's right. You're not going to get that time back.
Well, I think the whole concept of being right, I'm just from a personal leadership point of view, I'm starting to learn that there is no right and wrong. Very few situations are there right and wrong.
Sit back and keep your mouth shut, right?
Well, or just deal with what is, whatever it is, deal with it. It doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong. It's as long as you can get to your end game, which is what we're trying to figure out.
True. That's very true.
Maggie, just a couple lighter questions to finish up because we only have a few minutes, but tell me do you have a favorite book that you like or one that you're reading now? Or?
Yeah, I do. I have a favorite book. I have two favorites, and one I'm reading right now, but they align with me and my personality and motivate me. The one that I find motivating is The 1% Rule by Tommy Baker. Are you guys familiar with that?
I am. I haven't read it, but I am familiar with it.
Okay.
Right, same.
So it's basically helping your mindset, right? And your progress mindset, right? And if you feel that you're moving the needle, you'll stay motivated. And that's really, it's kind of, you almost should read it every so often just to remind yourself, like you have a goal, and it's easy to get derailed, but if you push just 1% towards that goal every day, that's your progress, and that keeps you focused.
Great message. I'm getting that book. You reminded me.
And the other one, the other one that I'm currently reading is by Sam Carpenter, and you're gonna say, well, that sounds like you wrote it, but it's the efficiency and effectiveness of implementing systems. Right. So it's breaking down those complex tasks or operations and manageable components, documenting the process. The office gets sick of me asking, where's our documentation? Are we following it? And if somebody comes in and they get trained, I said, was anybody using documentation, or did you follow documentation? Right. I'm so big on that, right? It's building these processes to make our life easier, And
replicable, which is how you continue the legacy.
Right. And that's growth.
That's
efficiency. Yeah. That's scalability. I mean, that's so. Work the System by Sam Carpenter.
Maggie, one last question. I know you have daughters, and we often like to say, what advice would you give your younger self? But in this case, what advice would you give your daughters if they're entering the business world? Do you have any thoughts on that for anyone that might be listening?
I do. So keep it simple. I think of the younger, generation, they can lose sight. There's so much out there with the social media. You need vision. Right. Know where you're going, what you want. Balance, right? Setting those priorities, right? Balancing your personal, your professional life, your family values, and prioritizing properly. And the execution, the proper execution of these things. So always learning, building systems to make yourself better, surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And people who value you and have integrity.
Wow, you said a lot there. There was a lot of great lessons in that we could probably do a whole show on all of that. Maggie, you've been great. You've been a wonderful guest. We really appreciate you being here today. And
thank you both.
No, thank you. This was
great.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Our pleasure. Everybody have a great day out there.
Thank you, guys.
We'll look forward to seeing you. You're welcome. Thank you, Maggie. And we're looking forward to seeing you all again next week on Founders Forum.